What's the creepiest / scariest thing you've seen but no one believes you? Just after high school, maybe 6 months or so after 9 to 11, I was a van driver who drove the Meals for Meals on Wheels to the place where they get packaged up and taken for home delivery. Anyway, the delivery van only had AM/FM radio, and I was listening to 92.5 FM when all of a sudden the station cut out and a transmission that I can only describe as an American version of a numbers station began playing. It was seemingly random numbers followed by a long period of the same phrase repeated over and over again. The phrase was "they took the crosstown bus" over and over again. None of the other drivers heard it, but man was it creepy to hear. Eventually the regular radio station came back on, and they never mentioned anything about it. I woke up to something. It sounded like a door shutting. At first I thought it was a dream, because I could hear it in the dream as I was waking up, kinda like when someone calls your name when you're dreaming. But then I looked at my cat. His hair was completely standing up, and he was beaming at my bedroom door. This was the moment when I got really scared. I know animals can pick up on that shit, and I thought he might know something's wrong. My cat doesn't do this type of thing unless a dog is in the room. So I looked over at the door, and the only way I can describe it is it looked like it was swaying slowly, like it was breathing, like someone was standing on the other side of it trying to hear if I was awake. This swaying was accompanied by a shadow. Asterisk, I don't mean a supernatural shadow, but it looked like the shadow of a person behind the door. I was paralyzed in fear. I lied there for 5 minutes naked watching this door away. I considered yelling and trying to scare them away, but I was terrified someone might respond. I legitimately thought this was the moment where I will have to defend myself or be killed. I don't own a gun, but after 10 minutes or so I mustered up the courage to check every room in the house. I fucking checked every corner too, but there was no one there. I don't know what happened, but my evolutionary traits kicked in, and I completely believed someone was outside my door. Edit. The accompanied by a shadow part was not a shadow figure. It was like the shadow you'd see if something was on the other side of a cracked door. I don't know if that makes the story less scary or what, but just wanted to be clear. The scariest thing I saw was at the age of 16. I woke up early in the morning, 4:30-5 AM. Me and some friends were supposed to go on a road trip for the weekend. We had a long ride to one of the stops we wanted to visit and didn't want to be there till late. I look out my window and it's still kinda dark outside. I walk downstairs and see wet footprints all over the house, and suddenly a big man, like 6 feet 7 inches, I was around 6 feet 1 inch at the time, just bolted past me and out the front door. Not really creepy, but I shat at least 5 bricks and bolted upstairs to my dad. Nothing got stolen, but things were scattered all over the house. I used to have a buddy that lived in the same neighborhood, a few streets over. One night we were having a couple of beers in his backyard while playing cards. I had some things to do the next morning, so just before 10 I said my goodbyes and shoved off. It was a short walk, maybe 15 minutes door to door, so I never drove. Anyway, it was a nice night, uneventful trip. But when I got home, my roommate was coming out the front door, coffee in hand, and dressed for work. He gave me a funny look and said he thought I was asleep since my truck was in the driveway. I told him where I'd been and asked why he was going into work at night. That's when he kind of laughed and asked if I was drunk. We stared at each other for a minute, and then he told me it was just after 5 in the morning and he was going in just like he usually did. In my entire life, I'd never felt more confused than I did in that moment. I could tell he was dead serious, but I knew I had just left my friend's house. I checked my phone and sure enough, 5 something in the AM. My roommate left for work. I paced circles in the living room for a bit, then called the friend whose house I'd just left. He groggily answered and confirmed I'd left at 10 the previous evening. I have no idea what happened during those 7 hours of my life, and it gives me chills to think about it all these years later. I wasn't drunk, I wasn't tired, no one could have slipped anything in either of the two cause lights I'd had, no known medical conditions that would have caused me to black out, and nothing has happened like it since. I just don't know what happened to that time. Fishing on Lake Minnewanka in Banff National Park with a good friend. About 50 feet from shore, around 8:30 PM, I see glowing red eyes up in the trees. Like red, like Predator I guess. I do a double take, they are gone. I decide not to say anything, maybe I'm tripping. Did just smoke up. Nope. 5 minutes later my buddy says I just seen some glowing red eyes up in the top of those trees. I feel goosebumps. Yup, I saw them too. We look back, and they are gone. We decide to aim the boat towards the shoreline. It's not dark yet, but sun is going down. We saw nothing. No owls, no goats in the trails. We didn't get off the boat, but we had a good look around. When I ask him about it, this was around 10 years ago, he just says he doesn't want to talk about it. I can't blame him. But after all these years I've never heard or seen anything like those glowing red eyes, 30, 40 feet up in the trees, staring at us. I copied and pasted this next part. I knew nothing about the history when we went fishing there. For more than 100 centuries, people hunted and camped along the original shores of Lake Minnewanka. The Stony people called it Minwaki or Lake of the Spirits. They respected and feared this lake for its resident spirits. The early Europeans called it Devil's Lake. I used to go camping there. I do not anymore. Mostly because it's bear country for most of the summer. But yeah, also because of those bright red eyes. I will never forget that. Most surreal thing I've ever seen.